we are going to discuss Ari Lennox, who has some choice words for Martin. Uh, 80s and early 90s babies are going to know Martin. I don't know how you can be born. If you're a Gen Xer or a millennial, I feel like you got to know what Martin is.
Of
A
course.
classic show from the early 90s, back when Martin Lawrence was actually funny. And, it often gets debated amongst the funniest television shows ever. But not according to Ari Lennox, who always felt some type of way about Martin because he felt as though the jokes that were aimed towards Pam, the character Pam, played by Tashina Arnold, were they had undertones of colorism, or rather, they invoked themes of colorism, and so she wasn't necessarily a fan of that. So this says Ari Lennox talks Martin's jokes about Tashina Arnold and colorism. Ari Lennox recently shared her thoughts on the jokes aimed at Pam on the sitcom Martin. The Grammy winning singer said, "The thing that pissed me off about Martin was how much he was going in on Pam." She added that Pam was so effing beautiful and so fine, but growing up as a dark skinned girl, she felt those jokes made it hard to fully appreciate her. On the show, Martin's character often made fun of Pam's hair, face, and style, calling her names like Beast or Scary J. Blige. That was funny. I think another one of Pam's names was also Phony Braxton.
Yeah, I heard.
I can think of some others if you give me time. Uh,
Uh,
while it was played for laughs at the time, many now view those jokes as examples of colorism and bias against dark skin tones. Colorism is discrimination against people with darker complexions, especially within the black community where lighter skin is often unfairly favored. Linux's comments have sparked mixed reactions online. One Twitter user said the reaction people are having to Ari Lennox saying that about Martin is absolutely how it is to be a dark skinned woman, pointing to the lasting impact such jokes have. Another user responded that Ari was bringing up a generation that doesn't understand real comedy before the censors, suggesting the jokes were part of the show's style. It's worth noting that Martin and Tashina worked together to develop the jokes, often roasting each other on and off screen. While the show remains a classic, this discussion shines a light on how black women, especially those with darker skin, are portrayed in media and how those portrayals affect viewers. So I'm wondering whether we need to call Stephen A. Smith in on this topic before we give our takes, because I'm pretty sure he'd love to talk about this. But what do you think about what Ari Lennox had to say? You think the jokes about Pam on Martin was, they reinforced themes of colorism?
uh, yeah, I actually do. I put on my inner Stephen A. Smith and agree with Miss Ari. But hang on. So here's the thing, and it's kind of a theme going on today's show. I like that. Now, so yes, I just finished bagging on Stephen A. Smith about doing stuff like that. However, okay, there are things that do go on in the film world where they are portraying certain things versus others. Um, and so one of the dynamics that I did realize that went on in a lot of black content was, the red one was the attractive one, generally speaking. That tends to be what's going on. So for that show, the baseline was Gina was the desirable one and Pam was the non-desirable one. All right,
Well,
so
more specifically, it was that Pam was the one who couldn't get a man, couldn't find a
and
man.
couldn't get a man.
Yeah.
So there the dynamic was it was the underline. It was the underscore of what was going on everywhere else. Now I've seen other people's take on this, and they said that everybody was getting it on the show. Gina got it on the show from Martin. He gave it to Cole. He gave it to Tommy. He gave it to everybody. So when it came for Martin making jokes, Pam got it just like everybody else. So to me, I agree with that take in the sense that, yeah, it was fair game. Uh, It would make fun of Gina's the size of her head and other things. But the casting, I think the casting of the show is more of the how the colorist nature of that plays out, if you will. And much like how casting and other things, I would say, would do that in others. Um, like for the longest, in commercials, I would realize that there would be um, commercials where there's a dark skinned father and a curly haired, racially ambiguous woman. That's his woman. Not a Ari Lennox or Tanisha Arnold, whatever her name is. All right, so you would see those things go on often. Martin came out in the 90s where that was very much at its height. So when casting was going on, I'm sure the lighter skinned one won the role in the sense that she would be the desirable one. Same thing happened with Fresh Prince when they took out one mom and then they put in a lighter tone mom later, who couldn't act as good and wasn't as talented, but she's fairer. Same thing happened on My Wife and Kids with that girl, the racially ambiguous girl that replaced the other girl. It's a theme that you would see that would happen in Hollywood. So again, yeah. So Martin fit the stereotype when it came to, in my opinion, having the desirable woman be the more fair skinned one. And so, yeah, Pam was getting the brunt of the things. But at the same time, as I mentioned, everybody was catching strays. And Pam eventually got a man. She ended up being with Tommy. But Tommy didn't have a job. So I guess we're back to square one with that. But all in all, I think that Ari does have a point. That was a conversation that would be had in my college days and stuff like that when we were just observing things that we watched, where certain messages were being portrayed to our people. If it was a situation where it was more 50-50, it wouldn't be a conversation. But there's too many examples where I can either show you in a sitcom or a movie or something like that where somebody got swapped out for a more fair skinned person or a racially ambiguous person or whatever. Take your pick. So it is a thing that you do see in Hollywood. So yeah, Martin fits the bill with that. So for Ari to point that out, I don't think she was reaching so much. I think that is a dynamic that happened in the 90s quite a bit. But what are your thoughts, man, on what Ari Lennox had to say where Martin bagging on Pam all the time was actually a form of hateful self-hate colorism? What are your thoughts, man?
I mean, I guess if people want to have that stance, I'm not mad at it. Weavy Wonder, that was another one. That was the cruise episode. Lynn Whitfield, she called Pam Weavy Wonder when she was trying to slide on Martin. That was another one, Weavy Wonder. It was so many of them, man. I got to think of them. But and I did look that up too. I just recall that. But yeah, that's fine. I mean, yeah, sign of the times. It is what it is. That's what was happening. So I'm not. If you disagree with that point, I'm not gonna get mad at you. And if you believe that Ari Lennox is on to something, I'm also not gonna get mad at you. I'm kind of neutral when it comes to stuff like that. I kind of feel like generationally, all things are created as a result of the time in which they are created. White shows are like this too. There's a show. There's a show called The King of Queens. I don't know if you ever heard of it.
Yeah.
It's a white show. There's two black people on the show, but it's mostly a white show. And there are certain scenes that I remember watching where they're like making gay jokes that aired on TV at the point when the show was around. And now, many years later in syndication, I vividly remember those scenes, and I'll watch a rerun, and the scene just won't be there because they just got rid of it. They just got rid of it because the scene didn't age well. So, like, with white shows, colorism obviously. Well, hell, I don't know. I'm not white, so I don't want to be ignorant here. I don't know if there's a such thing as a form of colorism with white people. I'm not sure, but I don't think it's the same thing as it is with black entertainment or black people. So I would say with white shows, they had things going on, that are similar to that also didn't age well. And so now in retrospect, we're having these conversations about whether those shows were actually reinforcing certain negative tropes. And like as in the example of that show, there was like gay jokes and stuff like that going on, where it was just passe that we're just going to use gay people as the butt of every joke because being gay equates to something negative, and or being gay equates to something being funny. So I feel like a lot of that stuff was a sign of the time. So I'm fine with it. I mean, if we're gonna go that far with Martin, then I feel like we need to talk about all of it, because I feel like Tommy being the guy who never had a job, you could sort of insinuate that that was playing on low hanging fruits about black men who didn't want to work.
Yeah.
For real. Like if you want to, that's what I'm saying. Like it all applies. Is my point.
Yeah.
Like Cole being the moron, being the idiot, that could in that could, you can infer that that leans on certain low hanging fruits about black people, or black men more specifically, and their lower levels of IQ and intelligence juxtaposed to other people,
Yes.
because Cole was the idiot on the show. So
Correct.
on a lot of these various pieces of entertainment, you had this stuff going on. I mean,
Correct.
even like there were like those shows from the 90s that were like teenage oriented. A lot of
Hmm.
them typically had the blonde girl who was an idiot. She was a dumbass. Like that was also a stereotype. Blonde women have no intelligence. They're dumb, they're idiots, they're ditzy. All they're here for is looks. So is that colorism? Not necessarily, but it is some form of stereotypical typecasting that can work to the detriment of a certain group of people. In
Correct.
that instance, women who are blonde, because I'm pretty sure women who are blonde take exception to the idea that they're inherently stupid. So this kind of stuff was going on, bro. And honestly, I don't take anything away from what Ari Lennox said. She has a point. That probably is true, but there's aspects of that show. There was the greedy, there was the cheap Latino landlord. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? There was Stan was the cheap person who was shisty running a radio station, but he was always doing shisty stuff on the side. So these shows had all kinds of tropic themes with a lot of the characters and the way that they casted people. And honestly, from what I've seen, it wasn't just the black shows; the white shows did it too. So I feel like that kind of stuff was going on across the board. And if I'm being completely honest and transparent, those shows were funnier than the shows on now. So I challenge somebody to find the correlative link between, you know, genuine humor and the fact that those shows lean on those low hanging fruits. But those shows arguably were funnier than the shows that are out now.
No,
So
100.
you can take that for what it's worth, but I don't take anything from away from what she had to say. That kind of stuff was going on across the board. Was it reinforcing themes of colorism? Perhaps. But I'm the wrong person to ask, because to me, watching Martin, it was very debatable who looked better between Pam and Gina.
It
And
was a
and,
debate in the streets, that's for sure.
and it, depending on which side of the bed you woke up in the morning, I had days where I woke up and I said Pam looks better. I had other days where I woke up and I said Gina looks better. It just depends. It just depended. So and then I hear where Ari Lennox is coming from, but ain't no colorism on this side because I think she's a good looking chick. So it is what it is, bro. But I guess she has a point. I ain't tripping off that.
Yeah, and I say this, and point well taken that you know, there's things that you can do. There's things that you can do in the 90s that you can't do now. Colorism though it'll still be around. That that is a mainstay. You will see racially ambiguous on your TV screen. Those are people. They're people too. Okay, but you will see that for sure. And but what that the the flip side of that is that what it does for the psyche of the people that are watching that and aren't filtering or whatever. But then you'll get conversations or you'll hear black men, uh, talk amongst black men about how they're not dealing with any dark skinned women.
So, can I ask you a question? And this is a legit question. I'm not steering the conversation in any direction.
Mhm.
We're still doing that. We still do that. So
Yeah, bro.
there's still a persistent idea that light skinned is just more attractive. That's still a
Yeah, bro.
thing.
Yeah, bro. There was this streamer. So he's a young guy. This streamer, they was dragging him through the mud about a month and a half ago, about how he was saying, "Don't bring no dark skin. If she darker than me, bro, don't bring her around." You know, and he was just, saying some nasty stuff. And then so yeah, there's people that do that. And then so there was a discussion that went on that beauty standards, that we had the beauty standards conversation earlier, and that beauty standards were being you know uh put into the minds of Americans based on what Hollywood's most sexiest actress looks like, blase splees, blase blahs. And what ended up happening is that there was a standard of beauty that was being held up more than others. This is the theory.
Hmm.
And then so through constantly getting that filter of whatever, that she's the hottest, she's the hottest, she's the hottest, that becomes the standard of that's what I want, the hot woman, you know. And so uh, the closer that you can get to that, you're doing your thing. So if she's dark skinned, she don't look nothing like uh, Reese Witherspoon. Whatever they would say to that person. Sometimes they'll say the most sexiest one. I was like, this piece of thing here, you know what I'm saying? The lady at Kmart looked better than this. All right. But hey, that's what Hollywood Insider said. So, but so the closer you can get to that, the better. And if she's black and she's on this scale of really light skin, racially ambiguous, mixed, all this other stuff, until the threshold until you can get the actual snow bunny of all snow bunnies, and and you got it. You've got the picture of beauty that's been conditioned to you since you were a young person, and you just thought it was because I always watched Friends and I thought Phoebe was hot, you know. But now it's a situation where I got my own Phoebe at home. But how did I get a Phoebe? Well, because you had that little thing going on with that actress or whatever, so and so. That's the theory of it.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
so constantly promoting these types of air quote colorist ideas, what it does is it puts the dark skinned women in a position where they have this complex now, or they got a Serena Williams and bleach their skin, and it's a whole dynamic behind that. So, but to answer your question, yes, there's still black men out here that do that. There's still that have that complex that the creamier the better. You know,
That's interesting.
yeah, man. So it's a dynamic. So when did that begin? Was it the chicken or the egg type of situation? And I would argue that TV shows like Martin that play on the subconscious mind, do these whatever, it just over the years, it just become a thing of that's more desirable, that's more desirable, and
Well,
blah.
Pam had her moments on the show where she was getting desired though.
Hey
Like
man,
there, were-
no, she
there
was
was there was the episode where Keith Sweat was trying to holler, and
hey.
there's been other there are other guys throughout the history of the show where she was getting play, but Gina was always the one who was consistent because she was with Martin and that was the
Right,
steady game.
right.
I felt like more so than desirability, there was a subtle insinuation on, you know, keeping somebody, because
Right.
even though
Security.
Pam was always getting action, she was also routinely single.
Correct.
So I kind of felt like that was the more purposeful thing that was taking place, because it's like, well, why, this is a good looking woman, why in the real world there's no way a woman who looked as good as her would stay single for a long time. There's dudes hollering at that all the time. So that was the part that was like, okay, well, maybe there's a bit of an undertone behind that being the theme of her character. But it's interesting that that still goes on, because that's weird to me.
Oh yeah, it's out
I
here,
kind
man.
of feel like as long as you take care of yourself and keep yourself in shape, skin complexion is an afterthought. And I hear what you're saying. I want to believe that most people are reasonable and in the middle on that. But I could be. I tend to be. I tend to from time to time be wrong about stuff like this,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I could very well be preaching to the I could very well be singing into the wind. But that's interesting though, especially now with the music and stuff. You know, like I feel like Megan Thee Stallion, for example, I wouldn't put her in the light skin
No,
category,
no, not at all.
but I'm
No.
pretty sure I feel like she's perceived to be very desirable.
Oh yeah.
So it is what it is. I think things have moved, but I hear what you're saying. I think the foundation for a lot of it is still set in stone. And I do
Right.
agree with you. I don't think it's I think perceptions of attractiveness and even preferences are environmental. They're not innate. I think a lot of us are taught these things subconsciously. And
Correct.
from there, we sort of develop our preferences based upon that baseline inception of what comes into the brain. So,
Agreed.
yeah, I hear you on that. But, I hear, it is what it is, man.
Yeah.
Colorism is what it is, man. I mean, what are you going to do? I kind of feel like you're safe, basic rules, take care of yourself, keep yourself in shape, don't let yourself go, and everything else will work itself out.
Yeah.
Now,
And Mark.
if you're trying to get your bones in the entertainment industry, good luck, because that's a beast that that monster is going to do what it does.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it is
And
what it is.
Martin will forever be a classic. I knew that was going on. I knew. I mean, I was on. I'm on board with what she said because I already had that as a latent thought. But nothing's gonna stop me from watching a clip and laughing my ass off when those two are ragging on each other. Like that's not gonna change that. To me, I feel as though, much like I was talking about with sports, man. Martin unifies people, man. Yeah, man. Us 80s and early 90s, man. That is an absolute classic. So yeah, man, shout out to Ari was that Lennox? Shout out to
Yeah,
her. Um seen I've seen more of her lately since she's been a friend of the channel now. She I never heard of her, but yeah, she be saying things. And shout out to everybody that love Martin, man. Hell of a show.
hey, listen, man. Like I said before, that stuff was funny. So go ahead and get rid of all of the negative stuff and still give me funny. If you can manage that, then I'm fine with it. But I don't know. Stuff is so watered down and lame and not funny now. You know, Whitney Houston. That was another one. Whitney Houston. Damn, it was so many, bro. The right, bro. Martin used to like Martin's not funny anymore.
No, no,
But
no.
man, that was like rolling off the chair funny.
100%.
Watching that. But yeah, shouts out to Ari Lennox. You know, in my book, I'll take you. Listen, if men want to get you, turn you down off of colorism, come my way. Holler at us. JV Wins Conscious Approach. We got a spot right here for you.
Hey man, she's built the right way. I'll say that. She's the right way.